Alright, this is just a draft, so I'm open to your thoughts, and we're diving into two game-changing voluntary alternatives to dodge the welfare collapse, okay? And this video is not going to be edited and super crazy as the other videos. I just wanted to do something more raw. So we're going to dive into two different things in regards to what I said now. And the first one is the universal basic income. So imagine a system cleaner than what we have now. UBI can wipe out involuntary poverty in poorer countries through a Pareto Optimal plan without boosting public spending, okay? And here's the kicker. The per capita poverty line is actually lower than the potential allowance. Hold on. This allowance comes from diving the potential beneficiary population by current welfare spending and factoring in improper incomes and secondary benefits like cutting out perverse and opportunistic incentives, right? And the second one is simulations via metaverse and or drugs. Okay, let me explain that in a field. Picture this, keeping citizens' content in virtual simulations or under the influence of drugs. It's a legit alternative for social peace, created an economy of abundance. The bottom line is, not going for these voluntary alternatives means choosing violence. Ignoring institutions that foster cooperative behaviors just keeps the cycle of corruption and underdevelopment spinning, right? So social states, as we know, welfare state or provident state, is the political setup where the state acts as the ultimate guarantor and organizer of the economy, right? And even conditioning property to its whims and interests. Just take a look at the concept of social purpose as the limit and foundation of property, right? Let me say this again, of social purpose as the limit and foundation of property. In a social state, citizens have positive social rights, and the state is supposedly duty bound to guarantee rights like health, education, housing, retirement, and assistance. But here's the catch. These rights are often only properly exercised by the king's friends, as we say, king's friends, end up they end up costing the treasury more than they benefit the average person. This increases control and property asymmetry, right? So let me say this again. This increases control and property asymmetry, leading to a surge in corruption, administrative capture, and a heavier tax burden. And this model of political organizations is a ticking time bomb. Why I'm saying that? In practice, it racks up deficits like there's no tomorrow. In theory, it's shredded by heavy hitters like Kalmenger with his subjective theory of value, Bombayer's law of time preference, this one is very cool, and Mises' economic calculation problem, and finally Hayek's problem of the use of human knowledge. Okay, I would suggest you to read all of those. The facts back this up. The more state tightens its grip on the economy, the more it messes things up. And administrative capture and distortions skyrocket, turning opportunism into the norm. This wrecks the currency, trashes morality, and kills cooperative spirit, all of which has been happening since the first social state, right? There's a study to that, and actually, there are a lot of other studies that you can check. Click in the link of the description where the script of this video is located in my blog, on my blog, right? And there are various studies referencing each sentence that was said here. So if you want to check by yourself and do not trust me, you can do it looking up for these studies that I dropped, right? So misery, yeah, that's been humanity's default setting for centuries. Picture this. People, young and old, busting their backs just to get food and shelter. Then, bam, the Industrial Revolution hits, productivity skyrockets, and suddenly the game changes. Now, let's break this down. Historically, the hours we spend working have been on a steady decline thanks to some serious productivity gains. We're taking scale, tech advancements, investments, you name it. But here's the kicker. This trend could lead us straight into structural unemployment. Think about it. New tech making it impossible for most people to find work that pays better than a robot. Oh, yeah, big names like Bill Gates and Elon Musk are already sounding the alarm on this. And there's Ray Kurzweil who says that sorry, he says that by 2030, computers will match human intelligence, and by 2045, we're looking at singularity where machines outsmart all humanity. Crazy, right? And if you thought COVID was a game changer, think again. Post pandemic, a bunch of workers didn't return, and our population ages. The situation looks grim without cutting down on regulations and so called social rights. And let's throw Wagner Law into the mix. And if you don't know what is it, there is a study referencing that as well, but you can Google it too. So let's throw Wagner's Law into the mix, the law of increasing state spending. This suggests that states will keep growing their spending until the private economy collapses. And all right, enough doom and gloom. Let's talk solutions. I've got two for you, and they aren't mutually exclusive. Sorry, they aren't mutually exclusive. And first, ditch welfare by voluntarily giving up political and social rights for a minimum monthly income. And second, we could end the social state by indulging citizens' desires through drugs and simulations, as I explained earlier, and offering a universal basic income to those who renounce their political and social rights. Yeah, it sounds wild, but hear me out. These moves could cut down the bloated social state and kill off those nasty perverse incentives. It's Pareto Optimal, meaning benefits some without hurting others. The result? Increased productivity, higher revenues, more cooperation, and a massive cut in public spending and corruption. These so-called rights are a serious drain on the public treasury, costing way more than they actually benefit the recipients. A prime example, public university courses. According to Ithaca S plus R6, yeah, you got to check it out, this one here in the description as well, this study. But according to them, these courses can be significantly pricier compared to private ones, showcasing major inefficiencies. Something that is not efficient, showcasing major inefficiencies. So here's the deal. Even as the real value of RMU increases, we'll see a systematic reduction in public spending, and this would also cut down on the distortions caused by social rights, ramping up productivity, slashing corruption, and minimizing opportunism. So now let's talk about the development universal basic income, that is stands for UBI. All right, listen up. We're diving into the concept of universal basic income and why it's a game changer for addressing poverty without blowing up public spending. Here's the deal. Instead of throwing money at a bunch of inefficient social benefits that just end up encouraging laziness and crime, we propose a simpler solution. Imagine if the government replaced these programs with a universal basic income. By doing so, we could eliminate involuntary poverty without spending more, as shown by government data. Yes, that's another one that you can check here in the description. So, picture this. By updating population and public spending data from the refereed study, we could offer a minimum income of over $500 to everyone. But there's a catch. Actually, two catches. And first, you have to obey the law. If you have pending criminal, civil, or administrative issues, you lose the benefit. Second, you need to renounce other public incomes and the exercise of political and social rights while receiving this income, okay? So this approach could seriously reduce the rising poverty levels we've seen despite increasing social spending. And this isn't just some pie in the sky idea. It's grounded in real data and a practical approach to making sure every dollar spent actually helps those in need, cutting out waste and inefficiency. If compliance with legal duties was tied to UBI payments, where payments are suspended if someone falls behind on any judicial or administrative obligations, you would see a serious reduction in costs. These would speed up processes, make executions easier, and push cooperative behaviors to the forefront. Now, imagine this: a citizen with a guaranteed minimum income equal to or higher than the legal minimum wage would have their basic needs covered, right? So there would be no reason to oppose the condition for receiving this income being the renunciation of social rights, pension, labor, and welfare. This approach would massively expand their opportunities to work and create wealth without the burden of high social costs that keep unemployment and illness rates up. This would stop holding back young people and the poor from gaining experience and qualifying for better jobs. There's also no reason, let me rephrase it, there's also no reason to oppose their renunciation of the exercise of political rights. First off, they don't renounce the right itself, just its exercise. Sorry, just looking at this Slack right now, I saw a message being dropped in the chat. Let me continue with it. They can always jump back in and exercise those rights by giving up the minimum income. Now, here's the kicker again. If this applied to retirees and civil servants too, it would slash opportunistic incentives. And why? Because it stops people from being net recipients instead of contributors. Check this out. The US federal budget for 2013 showed that without increasing federal spending, you could eliminate involuntary poverty. How? Di- just by dividing the total welfare spending and non-tax state income among the potential beneficiaries with income below the UBI threshold. About 40 million people. That's $6,000 a year or 500 a month per person. And guess what? That's enough to wipe out involuntary poverty without upping federal expenditures. This doesn't even take into account potential secondary revenue boosts or state and municipal level UBI policies. Municipal. Now, let's break down the numbers, okay? The 2013 budget projected $3.45 trillion in expenditures by 2021. These balloon to a number that I'm going to say. Let me check here real quick. These balloon to, hold on. Okay, okay. So the budget projected $3.45 trillion in expenditures, and by 2021, this ballooned to $6.82 trillion. Meanwhile, the U.S. population. Okay, I gotta check something here real quick. Okay, yeah. Now let me explain this. Meanwhile, the US population grew by less than 1% annually. GDP growth was sluggish, and national debt skyrocketed from around 60% to over 100% of GDP. With a failing population, okay? With a failing population, oh my God, why is not scrolling down? With a failing population growth rate and an aging demographic, the economic outlook for the coming decades looks pretty grim. From 2010 to 2020, global GDP shot up by more than 40%, while the US GDP lagged behind with just while the US GDP lagged behind with just about 2022. Sorry, GDP lagged behind with just about 22% growth. This rising debt paired with stagnant GDP highlights the government's. Let me start this again. Sorry, I'm just unfocusing here because I saw some messages being dropped in here. It's about my job. Well, I gotta check that. I think that will be important. Okay, okay. Let me refocus here. Okay, sorry for that. Let me continue with this. I was talking about, yeah, this rising debt paired with stagnant GDP highlights the government's shrinking capacity to implement effective policies, underscoring the failure of current approaches to tackle poverty and maintain economic stability, right? Now, let's dive into metaverse and drugs, what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So we're going to dive into this more profoundly in a deeper level. The private solution, that's what I'm talking about. That's the private solution for keeping the unemployed masses pacified without giving them real political or economic opportunities. It's to offer them an escape from harsh reality. Well, that's the truth, right? How do they do it? With video games, party politics, gossip about celebrities, and macabre crimes, football and sports played by others, movies, soap operas, Big Brother, OnlyFans, and sex dolls. But here's the thing. All of these distractions are being totally outclassed by experiences with drugs and or virtual reality, such as VR, right? Is the same thing as just said the letters. Like the metaverse. Oh yeah, they can put a chip into your head. They can put a, you know what Elon Musk is doing, right? So it can controls what you feel and the sensation of the things. You can live like probably outside of the reality as if it were the real reality. So This combined with brain-machine interface technologies like Neuralink. Oh, that's the name. And think about it, the legalization and even the subsidy on drugs as public policy is crystal clear when you look at the opioid epidemic in the United States and its role in the decline of the republic. After 2020, you can't deny the political power of big pharma and its capacity for administrative capture. It's a harsh truth, but it's one we need to face and head on if you want to understand the dynamics at play here. And all right, folks, let's talk about bread and circuses. Circuses policies, bread and circuses policies. These strategies to keep the masses pacified without giving them real prospects have been around for millennia. But here's the twist: new technologies are taking this to a whole new level. If OnlyFans gives clients access to women they could never afford otherwise, sex dolls are stepping up the game with sight, sound, touch, and smell. And VR with a nervous system machine interface, it's about to blow the roof off by offering full sensory experiences that, as I said earlier, right, and in many ways could surpass reality. Because think about it, let's dive into it. If these machine to nervous systems interfaces hit their mark, everyday virtual experiences of sex, food, and social relationships will outdo the real ones. This isn't just a speculation, it's going to smash markets wide open and kickstart the economy of abundance in a post-scarcity world. And we're talking about a market where the marginal costs drop to zero. Imagine billions of people enjoying the experience of eating lobster or being with the best women in the world or even a woman better than any who ever existed. You can create your one. All because this lobster and these women are just simulations, right? And in VR, with the nervous systems interface, you can have the girl of your dreams at your back and call, or maybe even three of them at once, all different ages in your harem. Or how about being Superman taking on dinosaurs in ways you can even imagine? Like whatever wild fantasy you have can be programmed and experienced with all five senses. The temptations to spend every waking moment in these environments will be off the charts, and so will be the economy and political power of the meta capitalists controlling them. So, escaping reality, whether through ideologies, religions, simulations, or drugs, has always been the go to for those without opportunities for personal, economic, or political growth. This isn't changing anytime soon, right? Ray Kurzweil has been sounding the alarm since 2012. If machine to nervous systems interfaces boost productivity, intelligence, and physical performance, those who refuse these implants will be left in the dust. So think about it, like wild, right? They will become outcasts clinging to outdated methods, just like the Amish community, which chooses to live without electricity. Very crazy, isn't it? But there are people like that nowadays. And according to the same author, the next step for achieving perpetuity without be downloading one's consciousness. Hold on. Um, what else? Where I was at? So, without be downloading one's consciousness, so it could be uploaded into VR robots or surrogates whenever desired, or even simultaneously. Imagine that your consciousness living on forever, jumping from one digital realm to another. Hold on. With this vision, the trauma of inevitable death would vanish, freeing humanity from the grips of conventional religions. And with the end of scarcity, the idea of political religion would lose all relevance. And okay, let me drive this into the conclusion. What do I mean by saying all that? Let's bring it all together here. Welfare, as it stands, is unsustainable, right? And history shows us that all attempts at social states end in moral, social, and economic collapse due to the distortions and asymmetries of property and control. Let me rephrase it: an economic collapse due to the distortions and asymmetries of property and control they create. Think of it like this: in a condominium where the doormen not only vote but are the majority, they always vote for higher fees, more benefits, and more doormen, right? They will vote even to have like their own squirt at any moment. So this leads to the destruction of property values, residents leaving, and the eventual collapse of the condo. It's the classic tragedy of the commons, and we've laid out two solutions to tackle this. We've laid we've We've laid out two solutions to tackle this problem, both non-exclusive and voluntary. And as I said earlier, and I'm going to say this again, public solution was the first one. Do you remember? Propose that the government offers a universal basic income in exchange for renouncing political, social rights, and state incomes. State entities could gradually phase out social spending. This way, individuals can choose to receive a basic income and relinquish other benefits. And the second one, which is the private solution, large quintillion corporations could manage a significant portion of the unemployment population by providing, what do you think? What do you think? Escapes from reality, be it through drugs or simulations like the metaverse. Here, all needs can be virtually satisfied at zero marginal cost, sidestepping the issue of abundance. And when most people's conscious needs are met, their motivation to engage in political society or political religion dwindles. And this opened the door for the restoration of democracies and republics or oligarchies controlled by the likes of big tech and big pharma, right? And for centuries, the primary markets have revolved around people, such as like slaves, land with serfs, or free labor, and weapons such as power and freedom, and drugs such as pleasure and pain relief. These markets are likely to persist even in the metaverse. The alternative to, let me say this again, the alternative to, hold on a second. The alternative to these voluntary solutions, violence. And the alternative to policies that promote cooperative behavior, perpetual corruption and underdevelopment. Perpetual corruption and underdevelopment. So that's the video. That was these were those were wild thoughts. Let me know what you think here in the comments, but they make sense. They make sense, right?